everybody, welcome to this Monday night edition of Banfield. It's good to have you here. Let's get right to it. We've got a lot of exclusive information tonight on a crime we've been covering for a couple weeks now, one that is super mysterious and gets weirder with everything we learn. So Noah Pressgrove, 19-year-old kid in Oklahoma, supposed to be the summer of his life, right? He was heading out of high school. He was going into the military. Labor Day weekend was the last hurrah, and no one ever saw him alive again. Instead, they found him a crumpled heap, battered on the side of a lonely road in Oklahoma. But you would think it was a hit and run based on where he was. But for the fact that now we know his teeth were scattered across the road and near his body. Not only that, there was a blood-like spot 40 yards away, and that's the only blood spot we're learning may have been at the crime scene, despite the fact. Is it even a crime scene, despite the fact his body was so battered, there should have been so much more blood? So now there's two schools of thought. This wasn't a hit and run. This was a crime. This was a crime. Or no, this was not a crime. This was a hit and run. Turns out his best friend and his brother have diverging opinions on what happened. And both of them are speaking with us tonight. So don't go anywhere. This is exclusive and it is confounding. Britney Spears, listen, we kind of thought we were done when the conservatorship ended and all of that drama was over. She got her way. So did the Free Britney crowd. Well, how's that working out for y'all? Was freeing Britney such a great idea? Because now there are reports that she's in serious danger, that mentally and financially she could be nearing an end, and that her $60 million fortune could be in grave danger because of her bizarre behavior. The kind of behavior that some people say requires a conservatorship. Again, Free Britney, how's that working out? Going to dig into that, let you know what she did today that has a lot of fans freaking out. Maybe the police will be involved because of what she did today. They did last time. Also, listen, I am as confounded as you when it comes to the UFO reporting. I want to be a skeptic, but I don't want to be so skeptic that I'm not open-minded. When I saw that video out the passenger window of a plane coming into Manhattan, and Michelle Reyes saw what looked like a tic-tac going flying by, Mach Schnell. Slowing it down, you can get a better feel for what it looked like, but you had to slow it down to really get what it was. That is what she captured just out the plane window. And 2 million of you clicked on this when we put that out on social media to show you our interview with her. What's more important, though, is it's not the first time we've seen a tic-tac like that. 2 naval pilots saw that same kind of thing before. 2 naval pilots in real time commenting, and also on 60 Minutes. We're going to digest all of this and ask, what exactly are we to do if we see something like that? And if we do what we're supposed to do in reporting, is anybody really listening? Let's start here. I want to begin tonight with some confounding and never-before-heard details from what investigators call the suspicious death of an Oklahoma teenager named Noah Pressgrove. And every one of these details makes the word suspicious that much more of an understatement. We've been on this case for a while now. He was 19, brand new graduate of Comanche High School in Comanche, Oklahoma. He was planning to join the military, but first, one last hurrah for the summer of 2023. Noah's last summer as a carefree kid. It was Labor Day, it was a bash, that bash lasting most, if not all, of the holiday weekend.
Come on. Yes, come on, Shady. Oh! Damn.
This right now, dude, I'll just beat the old.
That was the last time Noah Pressgrove was seen alive. On September 4th, he was found dead less than a mile away from that party. He was on the side of a rural highway. He was naked except for his shoes, and one of the shoes that he was wearing did not belong to him. It wasn't a match. Authorities are saying almost nothing for the record. Noah's family, who still don't even have an official death certificate, told us that the back of Noah's head was caved in. Some of his teeth were scattered where his body was found, but some of those teeth were across the road as well, many, many feet away, no explanation. Pair of white shorts was a few feet away. He had road rash on his hip, gravel rash on his shoulder, and multiple bruises. His nose and cheeks appeared broken, and his fingertips seemed to be shredded. Today, Noah's older brother walked us to the exact spot where Noah was found. In an exclusive interview, Noah's brother dropped a bombshell. He said police told him that they have several people they are looking at as possible suspects. He also says he personally believes his brother, Noah, fell victim to foul play, which is the exact opposite of what Noah's best friend is saying. We spoke with him as well. His name is Jack Newton. He's known Noah his whole life, and he was with Noah at that Labor Day party the night he died. He says he believes his best friend's death was an accident. He also says that he took and passed a polygraph test. NewsNation correspondent Alex Capriello has been gathering all of this new reporting today. He joins me live now from outside of Terrell, Oklahoma. Really remarkable reporting that you were able to get on both sides of this, now what seems sort of pitched debate between these families. Tell me what you learned today.
Yeah, really interesting hearing both sides of the story, one from family, another one from a very, very dear friend. We did the interview separately because I didn't want any sort of contamination of the things that they were going to say to me and their accounting of the story, but really great details from the both of them. I'll show you just very briefly. This is the cross that now stands on the side of the highway. Jack Newton, that best friend who is at the very center of this conversation, is the one who actually placed these crosses here on the ground. The house where the party was, Ashleigh, is less than a mile away that way. So really the story goes, as they are trying to piece it all together, is that at some point Noah actually just walked down this road at some point, and his body was found not far from here. Let's begin with Jack's account, though, because Jack has a very different opinion about what happened than what his family members told me. And at the same time, he also shared new details about what it was like to have so much suspicion surrounding him and what it was like to pass a polygraph test. Take a listen.
I ran over here, asked him if Noah was okay, and the semi-truck driver had his hands on Noah like this. And so I just kind of, and I could just tell, that he was not okay. He was laying on his side, and he just had his eyes closed, And he had a cut on his forehead. Like, it wasn't just like terrible, it was just a cut on his forehead. The top of his hair was scraped off his head, and there was blood on his ears. 100% in my heart think that he was hit. I think he got hit on the top of his head by a semi. And that shoe that was on good just stayed on. I don't know. I can't explain any of it,
Is there any part of you that believes that he might have been beaten to death?
No, he was not beaten to death.
Why not?
Because just the injuries, you just could tell he's not. And I said, okay, I'll take a polygraph test. I took the polygraph test, and it was nerve-wracking, of course. I had these two things on my fingers. I had a butt pad and then my feet thing and these things around my chest. And I didn't even get to look at the guy. I was looking straight forward, and he was talking to me, asking me questions.
There's a lot of online chatter, and I think that's the reason why they're asking for you to take a polygraph test about you and your father. Tell me about what that experience has been like for you to have to handle that type of discussion happening all around you.
I think the reason that I got brought into it is because, going through high school, you did not hear Jack's name without Noah and Noah without Jack. We were just always together. He lived with us for a while, and we were just always at each other's houses. And I think when everybody heard something happened to Noah, they just said, "What about Jack?" And just, I don't know. I don't know where all the crazy talk's coming from. Just sucks.
Do you feel good to kind of be past that a little bit with the polygraph test? Do you believe that you're past that or no?
People saying stuff. People are saying like it's easy to pass a polygraph and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. You can't really control what people say about it. You just know what you know. And I've put my personal number on Facebook and said, if you want to talk about it, I'll talk about it.
So what has these last 7 months been like for you?
It's always been the hardest time of my life. And on top of other people saying everything, just been the hardest time of my life.
And so if you could tell there from the very beginning of that interview, Jack was one of the very first people on the scene. He tells me that he was leaving to go fishing with his dad when he drove up the road, noticed all the activity, and then saw Noah's body right here, bloodied on the side of the road.
Well, Alex, fantastic interview, and so telling, but I'm still confounded by the other side of the argument, which seems to come from Noah's family. His brother spoke with you today and has a completely different version of what he thinks happened. Tell me what you learned.
Yeah, while Jack is of the train of thought that this is most likely an auto pedestrian accident, a hit-and-run crash, which is something that law enforcement has virtually at least said that they have ruled out. From the brother's perspective, he feels like something much more sinister might have happened, that people at this party know something but just aren't saying it. Take a listen to my interview with him.
He had just said that Noah was in an accident, and so I thought he was in the hospital, and so I come by and I pick up my dad, and we started driving down there, and it's only a 30-minute drive from Comanche, but that drive felt like 2 hours just sitting in silence. And then we show up, and Jack and Caleb and the Jefferson County Sheriff was there, and Noah was covered up on the side of the road with the tarp, and it was just kind of a good 10 minutes just staring at fields, just and a loss of words, When we show up there, everything's going through our minds of what in the world could, because it doesn't look like a hit and run sort of situation, and some weeks go by and we, they finally rule out the hit and run, and that 4-day party turned into something awful that happened within just a short hour time span for him. I believe this is his tooth right here. His pants were folded up on that square mark.
His pants were there. His tooth was right there in that circle?
I believe so, yeah. And his body was here. And he was in the fetal position, facing that way, and his body was covered up with a tarp or a blanket type of thing. And as you're looking at it, you can see blood seeping through the covering and onto the ground. As I'm looking at it, it just seems weird. The placement of the body, the tooth, the shorts, where they're at, doesn't look like a hit and run. Not that I've been aware of.
Have you ever heard them say foul play is suspected?
I've heard suspected of foul play, suspicious death. And again, they don't tell me everything because they don't want to ruin the investigation. But they said that they've got a couple of people in mind on the situation, and that they're really looking in on them. So,
are you able to tell me who those people are?
They haven't told me.
But they have said that they have a few people in mind.
Yeah.
Interesting. Somebody's got to know something.
Somebody's got to know something. If there's 40 people standing around and someone, walks off, somebody knows about it. So if 40 people are standing around and somebody gets into a fight, somebody knows about it, and with how close everyone is, with how many pictures are taken on Snapchat, you think that something has to turn up. Somebody has to know something and just doesn't want to say it.
And has law enforcement been pretty open with you about the things that you're hearing or what they are investigating?
Somewhat. They're willing to talk about certain things, but then there's some things that's like they don't want to say too much because what if it messes up with the investigation, and so there's a lot of areas that we're still in the dark about, that they know more about, and I'm hoping that they know more about the situation. That's kind of their job, and the only way we're going to get through this thing is if we're still hopeful.
Do you have any message for law enforcement or anything that you want them to know about how you're feeling or this lack of information that you're getting?
I get it. I get it that you want to protect the investigation. I get it that you want to protect the case so that way it's carried out. But quite frankly, 7 months is too long. I just hope that people see this and are able to, I don't know, just maybe it'll push someone to say something, that they understand that it's being selfless. It's for someone else. It's for the true victim. If you know something, just say it. It's better to say it and let the family have some sort of peace, to let Noah have some sort of peace, than to not say anything.
And so, again, it's about a push for answers from this family, but unfortunately not getting much new information from law enforcement. They tell me their information is at least 3 or 4 months old. And then earlier today, I stopped by the medical examiner's office in Oklahoma City to try to find out what's the latest there, if an autopsy has been completed yet, and when we're expecting to get that paperwork. They were really closed off to me about that, Ashleigh. They said it's just not ready yet, and you'll get it when it is.
The issue about the suspects that Noah's brother believes that there are several people that they're looking at as suspects, that's what he's been told. At this point, they have already said if there are suspects, it's not necessarily that it was, an accidental hit and run. It could be both, right? It could be a hit and run, and that's criminal too if you leave someone on the side of the road and you know about it. Is it possible it could be both, even though police have said they don't think it's a hit and run?
Well, the interesting thing when actually examining the scene and then talking to the family is that there really was not overwhelming evidence to show that it was a hit and run. I've covered so many of these auto pedestrian crashes, and you notice some things are very similar, right? There might be debris from the vehicle that struck the pedestrian, right? A headlight or different parts of the car that are on the side of the road. There was no evidence of that. And then not to mention the fact that at least one of his shoes were still on his body. That's also indicative that a car traveling this fast on this highway, I've got to say, they're at least 70, 75, 80 miles per hour. Usually everything would go flying. The teeth were so close to the body. The shorts that were off of his body were so close to the body. So there's just evidence that points that it's not a hit and run. That's at least what the law enforcement is telling the family at this point.
I can't imagine why the FBI isn't all over this, and maybe they are. We don't know. I think you've said the OSBI is looking at this case. Tomorrow, I think you're going to be focusing into the law enforcement and see if we can get investigators to maybe help us navigate. Thank you. This has just been an incredible find today. Great job, Alex. Really great job out there. Thank you for this.
Thanks, Ashleigh.
Alex Capriello in Oklahoma. What a mystery. If you have any information about Noah Presgrove and that last night that he was live, and then, of course, if you know anything about his death, please call the Oklahoma Highway Patrol. Take a screen grab of this right now, 405-353-0783. Again, 405-353-0783. Take a quick screen grab. It'll be online as well, but please call. Oftentimes it's you, It's you, the community out there watching, that brings in a tip that can be the one thing that opened up everything. So if you can, help out. Still to come, off the radar or off the rails, or maybe both. Britney Spears is believed to be spiraling, and friends and fans are worried. She's deleted her Instagram account, and sources say she is isolating herself from the world. Was she better off when she didn't have total control of her life? Just how is that Free Britney thing working out now? That's next. If I had to wager a guess, this was not the outcome all those Free Britney forces were expecting to see. When the pop star was freed from her years-long conservatorship in late 2021, her fans were literally dancing in the streets with their signs and their buttons and the roses. They'd assumed that she'd been a virtual captive of her much maligned father, and once she was able to make her own decisions again, she would flourish. Hello there. I have news for you. That has not happened. Nope. I think we said it many times on this program. I hope you know the facts that you're out there social justice warrioring for. Live before our very eyes on Instagram, it seems the opposite has revealed itself. And now sources close to Britney tell TMZ that she's in serious danger. They say that she is, quote, completely dysfunctional and has radical mood swings, that she's reportedly isolated herself from the world. And just today, she deleted her Instagram account. Here's a taste of what she used to send out on a pretty regular basis. And if you haven't seen any of this before, buckle up.
Really puzzling to me is all these people are starting to send me all these scripts for my own life, but none of the scripts are even true. Aren't I supposed to play the role in my own life?
So guys, I just want you to know if I shut down my Instagram, do not call the cops. Don't ever be a roller coaster.
Her last post was a 20-minute audio-only rant about the conservatorship and how her family treated her. Here is part of it where she claims her father sent her to the treatment facility.
So I did it. I went to the place. I was scared out of my mind. And none of it, again, made any sense of what they were doing to me. And again, I haven't wanted to share this because it's unbelievably offensive, sad, abusive. And honestly, would anybody believe me? I remember the main thing of when I was in that place, that my heart felt like it was frozen, like it was stuck inside, and I wanted to scream and I wanted to get out. And I think by a needle and thread, it was the breathing peacefully inward that I missed the most. I felt like I was in a state of shock, almost like when an old person feels helpless and they're literally going through some sort of shock treatment and they can't relax their body because they don't have the answers of why they can't have their own keys to their car and put it in the ignition and walk outside, and their own security guards at every door saying they can't go, sitting down, drawing 6 galls of blood every week, weak as hell, and then calling, and my family is in Destin at my beach house. It didn't make sense.
It's not just Britney's mental health that has her friends worried, it's her finances as well. Sources say she had $60 million when the conservatorship ended, but that she's burned through most of it. One confidant told TMZ that Britney goes to Hawaii or French Polynesia by herself via private jet almost every month and drops close to $1 million per trip. She's also had to spend millions on the legal battle that she just settled with her dad, Jamie. Britney had accused him of stealing from her when he was in charge of her finances, but he was able to show that all of his expenses were legitimate and court approved. And so not only did she have to pay for her own legal fees, about $4 million, she had to cover his as well, another $2 million. I want to bring in someone who knows a lot about Britney's case. Jim Murray is an attorney and chief correspondent for Inside Edition. You and I have had a couple of conversations about Britney through this whole very sad series of episodes in her life, Jim. Start with the buyer's remorse for the Free Britney crowd. Clearly, it doesn't look like she is doing well without help.
Well, you know, that Free Britney crowd is largely responsible for a lot of the public pressure that caused this conservatorship to be focused on and then end. But you have to remember, Ashleigh, these conservatorships are not entered into lightly. They're generally a point of last resort. A judge has to approve them, and a judge did approve that conservatorship. And it was through Britney's Instagrams that many of the Free Britney movement was formed to say she's unhappy, she's being mistreated. And you're right, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and neither do many in the Free Britney movement. Even though their heart may be in the right place, it may not have been the best thing for her, given what we're seeing now.
Okay, could she go back into the same kind of conservatorship, or could she maybe even just go into a financial conservatorship, given that she's bleeding out everything she's ever earned?
It's not illegal to burn through all your money. People do it all the time, especially people in entertainment in Hollywood. If she blows through everything, that's still not reason enough to go into a conservatorship. As I say, a judge has to approve it, and it has to be a last resort. There have to be less onerous methods to help you first. So there's a conservatorship of your finances, your estate, and then there's a conservatorship of the person. She was under both before because she needed medical treatment, mental health treatment. And it's much more likely, given what we're seeing, that she certainly needs something, some attention, whether it's medical, whether it's medication, whether it's counseling, who knows? The question is really, who's around her now? Because since she got divorced, Sam Asghari was the closest person to her, and there's a question about who is close enough to her now to effectuate any change, or are they all yes people?
Or helping her to stay on a medication regimen because, she clearly needed that very much before. She deleted her Instagram today. The last time she did that, her fans went bananas, called the police, and there was a welfare check done. Do we know if that might be happening now because she did that again today?
We don't know that yet. And part of the reason is partly because of her small circle of friends. You mentioned the TMZ report. These people are talking off the record without naming themselves. And it's very difficult to get a clear read on what's going on. But when you hear about somebody burning through $1 million a trip for vacation and burning through, say, $6-7 million in legal fees, and hearing that a $60 million estate is on the verge of going broke, that is cause for concern, certainly. And then when you see some of these postings that you showed, they're very disturbing. I remember that knife incident that we all witnessed just a few months back. It seems like there's a cry for help, and I don't know who's really going to heed that and listen and really do something.
Poor kid. I mean, she's just had the most bizarre life, and I think really unfortunate upbringing, not just at her home, but through this bizarre Hollywood fascination and the pop star frenzy around her. I wish the best for her. I really do. I hope you and I talk about this again in a better resolution, but I don't know. I'm not optimistic. Jim, thank you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Always good to talk to Jim Murray. He's got his finger on the pulse, and he's a lawyer, so he knows. He does his research. Coming up, it has practically been litigated on the internet. But if you thought you knew everything about the Karen Read murder case, think again. Opening statements and the first witnesses got underway today, and already facts and video that we'd never seen before and didn't even know existed popped up in court. Going to show you the dash cam that some say solved the case in the first day. Was Karen Read actually framed by cops for the murder of a cop? We're going to go live to where the trial is happening after the break. Every big murder case gets tried in the press and on the internet long before it ever walks into the courtroom, and the Karen Read case might be one of the best examples of that I've seen in years. Read is accused of hitting her boyfriend with her SUV, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. The allegation is that it happened outside a house party and that Karen just left John there to die right there in the cold. That was 2 winters ago, January 2022. Karen's lawyers say not a chance. They say Read is actually the victim of an elaborate cover-up involving layers of police officers protecting their own and railroading an innocent woman. And now that the case is in the courtroom, the jury was sworn in this morning. Both sides gave opening statements, and then John O'Keefe's brother, Paul, took the stand for the prosecution, describing how he and his family found out that John was dead.
So we were in that waiting room. Doctor and nurse came in and told us that all their efforts to save my brother were unsuccessful and that he had passed away. I noticed Karen Read was there. She was being restrained by hospital employees, and she was, screaming out to us, asking if he was alive. He was pretty banged up. He had his eyes had swelled up. He had a breathing tube in, well, the mask anyway. Blood come down his nose, blood come down his mouth.
Prosecutors called 3 people to testify today in a trial expected to last 6 weeks. A local blogger was one of the first people to take up Karen Read's cause, and that advocacy came at a price. His name is Aidan Kearney. He's known online as Turtle Boy, and some of his followers have turned up at the homes of witnesses and prosecutors, and Aidan himself is facing charges of witness intimidation. He's pleaded not guilty, and he is kind enough to be live with me now. Thank you so much for being with me today. I know that getting into the courtroom is next to impossible. They're limiting that gallery, so you have to kind of watch it on a feed. But there were 3 pretty important witnesses today. Do you think big headway was made by the prosecutors today, Aidan?
I do. I just want to correct you. We didn't show up 1,000 witnesses. We peacefully protested outside the houses of cop killers. That's what we did. And do I think any headway was made for the prosecution today? Absolutely not. Everything the prosecution did today directly benefited the defense and if anything, helped out Karen Read's case. Because it showed, for instance, there's video in the driveway of multiple people at the O'Keefe house afterwards. Karen Read's car is parked right there. Not a single person in that driveway notices that her allegedly smashed to smithereens taillight is sitting there like that. That's one of many examples. We saw a dash cam video today that actually helps Karen Read. It exculpates Karen Read and it inculpates Jennifer McCabe, the woman who Googled how long to die in cold at 2:27. So I think this was an epic fail by the Commonwealth. It was a disaster, and I think you're going to see more of this as the trial goes on.
So it's always interesting in the prosecution's case, you can't imagine that all this negative stuff will come up, but sometimes they try to get ahead of it because they know it's sort of bad facts for their side. Since you just mentioned the dash cam, let me show that because I was surprised to see this as well. This was played in court. It's a Canton police officer's dash cam. His name is Stephen Seraph. He's arriving at the scene. And I think what you said here was that, that's one of those people is Jennifer McCabe, right? And the other is Karen Read. So what is it that we're really seeing here? Help me understand what it means.
What you're seeing there is genuine shock and trauma from Karen Read, who's running around like a chicken with her head cut off because she just for the first time saw the body of her dead boyfriend that she had no idea would be there. What you're seeing from Jennifer McCabe is a woman who's bundled up right there trying to grab Karen. She repeatedly talks. When John's body is moved out of there on the gurney, she turns her back to John. Karen's the only person in that party that attempted to save John's life. What does Jennifer McCabe do? She goes up to every officer there and immediately begins talking to them because she's already spinning the narrative that, maybe Karen Read did this. She doesn't mention to the 911 dispatcher, who she's on the phone with, or any of these officers, that she's directly outside of her sister's house and that there are warm blankets inside. And there's a trained first responder named Brian Albert, her brother-in-law, who's inside, a 29-year veteran of the Boston Police Department. There's a dead body on his front lawn. He never comes outside. I repeat, a Boston police officer did not come outside of his house when a dead Boston cop was found on his front lawn. The police never went inside. They never searched that house. Ashleigh, if you or I have a dead cop show up on our front lawn, I got news for you. They're coming in the house. They're searching that house. They're going to make sure that there's no blood in there, that there's nothing else incriminating in there. Instead, what did they do? They just blamed it all on Karen Read, who was the only person here showing any sort of shock.
Look for witnesses, right? They'll look for witnesses, look for all sorts of evidence of a party that is really, and this is so compelling, this video, seeing Karen, you can just see this bodily reaction she's having. One other thing, really big. We're hearing for the first time today about text messages we didn't know about from an investigator named Michael Proctor. These text messages are in the aftermath of John O'Keefe's death. And apparently the defense says that Proctor was improperly searching Karen Read's cell phone for nude photos and also texting his friends that he hoped Karen Read would kill herself. It's just astounding. What's the context of that?
So, Michael Proctor would love it if Karen Read killed herself because then she wouldn't have to go to trial. They could blame it all on her. And the fact that he's a corrupt cop who planted evidence and framed an innocent woman in order to protect a bunch of cop killers would never be made public. That she would be doing him a huge favor if she killed herself. Michael Proctor is close friends with the homeowners, the Alberts. He also said in a message to a friend who texted him and said, Jesus, Brian in trouble? He's got a dead cop on his front lawn. And he said, nope. He said, he's a Boston police officer. We're not going to investigate him. It's sickening. It's sickening what he's admitted to in there. He has known these people for decades, never disclosed this to his bosses. He lied to a state grand jury that indicted Karen Reed for murder and said he didn't know them. He has since been investigated by the FBI. How do you think we have his text messages? Because the FBI took his phone. The FBI is investigating an investigation of a murder. That never, ever happens. What we're seeing here is a very corrupt state police. I mean, that's huge. It's huge. Yeah. And he's also under internal affairs investigation, and he's going to have to testify at this trial. He's going to have to undergo cross-examination. This is a dirty cop. And by the way, these are the same dirty cops who came to my house and arrested me and charged me with, called my journalism witness intimidation, because I've been pointing out the same facts that I'm pointing out right now, that Michael Proctor knows knows the witnesses in the case, that he's friends with them. I've proven this.
Yeah. I have to say these are allegations that he's a dirty cop. It's not been proven, and I certainly have to just give that disclaimer here on this program. I would love to have the police come on this program as well and answer to these things. And Aidan, I really hope you'll come back. You're watching this case closer than anyone else. I sure hope you'll help us sort of sort through as other bombshells are dropped in the courtroom. Thank you for this.
Thank you for having me.
Just a quick note to our viewers, you should check out Aidan. His online handle is Turtle Boy on all social media, and tbdailynews.com is where you can find his work. Still to come. It's like a scene out of the Twilight Zone, honestly. An airplane passenger innocently gazing out her window and past the aircraft wing sees something that can be described only as otherworldly. Only when they filmed the Twilight Zone, cell phone cameras didn't exist. And now they do. And she was rolling. The national response to her mystifying video. Is it or isn't it a UFO? That's next.
In 2022, and the threats are more than you realize. If you're a victim of identity theft, LifeLock works to fix it on your behalf, backed by the $1 Million Protection Package. Enroll now.
If you see something, say something. How many times have you heard that in the last 23 years? It was pretty much drummed into our heads to fight terrorism, but it applies to other things too, like UFO sightings, for instance. Seems like there are more legitimate places nowadays to say something about spotting a strange spacecraft than ever before, but is anybody actually listening? We brought you the story of an airline passenger named Michelle Reyes. She had a window seat while flying over Manhattan last month, and while shooting video of the New York skyline, something unexplained and unexpected flew past at an extremely high rate of speed. A cylindrical-shaped object zipping by, and no matter how many times she watched it and rewatched it, she couldn't imagine what it was. So she emailed the FAA, and she notified the National UFO Reporting Center, and she reached out to a UFO clearinghouse called Enigma Labs, and they're the only ones who responded. And if that object in Michelle's video looks familiar to you, it did to me too. Remember that so-called Tic Tac UFO from 2004? A pair of Navy pilots spotted that object and described it to 60 Minutes many years later in 2021.
Dude, do you see that thing down there? And we saw this little white tic-tac looking object, and it's just kind of moving above the whitewater area.
Do you ever drop your phone and it sort of bounces off the countertop and then bounces off something else, and it's sort of like no predictable movement, no predictable trajectory?
Yeah.
I guess. It was just
like a ping pong ball.
No acceleration.
Very, very random.
Acceleration.
Later on, the targeting camera of another flight crew locked on to what was believed to be the same object before it sped off again. That infrared video was eventually cleared for public release. So back to my question. If Michelle Reyes just saw the same thing over LaGuardia Airport, or even if she didn't, shouldn't it be investigated, and not just by me and us here at NewsNation? Joined now by NewsNation special correspondent and investigative journalist Ross Coulthart. His interview with UFO whistleblower David Grush led to a groundbreaking congressional hearing on the subject matter. Good to have you. Let's get right to it. Your reaction to Michelle Reyes's video and the lack of sort of response that she got to reporting it.
Good evening, Ashleigh. Yes, it's a very compelling video. I remember seeing that when it was first posted, and I agree, it does look anomalous. One of the things that the debunkers often say is that these objects are moving so fast that they're often aeroplane fuselages and we just can't see the wings. But it doesn't appear to be that in this case. She did the right thing, though, Michelle, by reporting it to the National UFO Reporting Center, NUFORC, which is one of the two main organisations that take these sightings. The other one, of course, is MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. But one of the problems is there's really no one central government administered or independently administered body that takes all of these sightings. And one of the exciting things that's happening is the development of new smartphone apps. And they're coming in now. And what would have been wonderful in Michelle's case is if she'd had the opportunity to get an independent witness that could corroborate the sighting that she saw, hopefully from another angle. That way you can triangulate them and then do all sorts of calculations to estimate speed and altitude and things like that. And so that's why these new smartphone apps like Phenom, P-H-E-N-O-M, and the Enigma Labs app are very important.
So she does have some corroborating witness. I don't think the other witness on the plane has video, but certainly saw her post and said, I was on the plane and I saw the same thing, and was so freaked out by it she didn't say anything. I'm more curious about whether the government is actually listening and just not responding to her. What's your take on the fact that they are reading the reports? They did receive her information. They are looking at that video and they're dissecting it. They're just not letting us know.
There is absolutely no doubt, Ashleigh, that the government is taking an extremely close interest in UAPs, UFOs, call them what you like. The government never stopped looking at them after Project Blue Book, which is the official time when they stopped looking at them way back in the 1970s. The simple fact is, we do have ARRO, which is the military government body that's investigating government sightings, if you like, looking specifically for allegations of a cover-up. But there is absolutely no government interest officially in looking at UAPs. Now, I know that to be a flat-out lie. I talk to people all the time who tell me that the government is monitoring UAPs, and so they should be. I mean, we're seeing these things, as I reported on Reality Check just a month ago. We're talking about objects being seen over very, very secure airspace, nuclear missile silos, Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, for example. Places like that really should be national security installations where we have knowledge of what's flying over our airspace, and we don't. And so I think to a large degree, the government's embarrassed about this. It's got its head in the sand. And so it officially says to people, we're not interested in UAP sightings, but they are.
Amazing. Ross Coulthart, I love having you on, and it's not going to be the last time. Will you come back again?
A real pleasure. No problem at all.
Oh, pleasure's ours. Thank you so much. Okay, I do have one thing I want to tell you all before we end the show, and that is that tomorrow, Brian Enton has found something in Oklahoma in that terrible story of the two moms who were murdered. The grandma, Tiffany, who's looking after those two children that mom was coming to pick up. We have new video that we have found. And there she is with those two children, and that is reportedly just days after the alleged murder of their mom. You're going to see it all, find out about it tomorrow. Thank you for being with us tonight. Stay tuned. Cuomo's next.
Okay, I'm Chris Cuomo. Glad to be back with you tonight after a week away. And as it was,